Welcome back to the It's In Our Roots podcast, where we talk to inspiring people with roots in the countryside.
And today, can you believe it, we are at an event that we did not set up, and it's called Rootstock. It's a one-day conference for all farmers across the southwest to come and focus on resilient and profitable farming.
In today's episode, we're going to be chatting to two of the speakers at this year's Rootstock, Devon's Farmer of the Year and Devon YFC legend, Chris Berry, as well as farmer and agronomist, Ed Horton. Holly, it's in our Rootstock.
It's in our Rootstock, let's go!
There is very much a desire to look at things differently these days. So there's more people out there doing different things in agriculture than I think you could ever imagine. It's because I am a massive geek about plants.
No.
I am a massive dweeb when it comes to a plant. I've always liked growing plants, even when I was a kid.
I would have said 5 years ago, it's hard to be green when you're in the red and you're struggling to make a living and everything. So you carry on doing what you do because you are almost a little bit ignorant to it, actually. But yeah, actually having a greener approach has made massive difference to my profitability, actually, and it's not shying away from that and actually trying to make a difference and have a crack at it, really.
I can't believe that we're in Devon at an event called Rootstock, and you and me are It's In Our Roots from Devon. Was this meant to be or what?
When I saw it being advertised, I was like, well, if all the stars aren't aligning for this to happen, then it needs to.
If we didn't come here, I don't think we'd be true roots people.
We arrived at the door and the guy was like, oh, can we have your tickets? And we were like, well, actually, we're here to record a podcast. He said, what podcast? And we said, It's In Our Roots. He went, really?
I think he thinks that we're like someone special. Obviously not.
But I do sometimes think the name of our podcast is actually quite misleading, and that people think that we're talking about the earth and roots and soil. And obviously, usually that isn't the case. We're talking to lots of inspiring people. But actually, today we're talking to inspiring people that do care about soil, that do care about roots.
Which makes us all feel a lot more legit. But was it Sir Harry Studholme, or was it one of the other speakers we've already heard this morning that made a very clear point that, in fact, farming is all about the people.
Yes.
Without people, there's no farming. Without people, there's no podcast, okay?
Professor Matt Lobley from Exeter University,
Yes.
Absolute legend. He always talks about the importance of people behind the farming, and that sums it up. As he was saying that, me and Holly was sat there nodding ferociously.
Yeah. Do you know, for me, this is a bit bonkers, because as soon as he stood up, I thought, recognise that name. I used to reference him in so many of my, I think he would have been one of my top featured in my master's dissertation. I even came and chatted with him when I thought I was actually clever enough to do a PhD about the people in sustainable farming. Obviously didn't happen. I'm now making a podcast for free.
I hope that everyone's prepared for us to get a bit nerdy today. I can already see Holly's eyes are lit up. She is excited.
I was doing that thing, when the crowd and the audience are like, here.
Yeah. Lots of cool people on this lineup as well. So lots to look forward to. We're going to try and get a few of them. Who are we going to try and speak to, Holly?
Obviously, our mate Beza. Can you believe Chris Berry is here talking on the panel? Like, we've looked up to... Actually, I'm going to disclaimer. On the way here, Dan goes to me, I've actually always wanted to be Chris Berry. No, what were your words? In many ways, I've always wanted to be Chris Berry.
It sounds like you're taking the mick here, Holly, but there is a lot of truth in that. I've always looked up. Chris Berry is a past Cheriton and Thetburn young farmer. When I started, he was one of the older ones. I always looked up to Chris. He was county chairman for Devon. I'm now vice chairman. I basically just want to be him.
We get it. You're vice chairman. No, you're so right. And, I mean... I could just feel the electricity when he started talking this morning. Don't laugh because it's true. He started talking and people were like, instantly they were engaged, they were laughing. And I was like, that is Chris Berry, public speaker through and through. Yes. He knows how to capture this audience.
So we're going to talk to Chris Berry. Also, we're going to try and speak to Ed, aren't we? Ed Horton off of agronomy.
No, incorrect. Off of agronomy. Ed Horton... agronomist, perhaps, is he?
Yeah, he's an agronomist, but also he's a farm manager, I believe.
Yeah, like big time.
Big time, flipping massive farm.
I want to say up near me, Cotswold's way.
Yeah.
So that's cool. We'll talk to him about that. And also, you know what we do best? Let's get a feel for the atmosphere. Let's see what people are feeling at Rootstock.
Holly, do you know who I saw in the audience just a minute ago? Because we just watched the first session. We haven't spoken to him yet, Jeremy Gibbs off of last series.
I spotted him. I walked in and thought, there's a soldier here. Oh no, it's Jeremy. He really does, stand out as, wow, there's a big time character here
Holly,
today.
you're a little obsessed. It's bad.
Well, I think more people need to be obsessed with these inspirational characters. It's the only way the world will change. Thank you. Okay, so here we are talking with the Chris Berry, bit of an icon in our world. Dan, should we be bowing right now? That's what we normally do with our ex-chairmans, isn't it? And we've just finished listening to Chris doing an amazing speech all about what he gets up to on his farm back home, which I think you mentioned is pretty much in sight. Are we right, Chris?
Yeah, you see it just behind the shed there. It is literally right underneath the tree line, in the distance.
So how did you end up here today? What's the reason for you coming in and talking to everyone today?
Yeah, I think it was a mistake, actually. No, I think we held an event on farm very similarly in September. I was fortunate enough to win Devon Farmer of the Year this year. And when you get those kind of accolades for some strange reason, people want to talk to you more than they did before. I think the whole thing came from, I was managing a farm where I was needed to change things, else we might not have survived financially. And the changes we made have benefited everyone, really, myself, my family life, my farm, and the environment. And I think it ticked a lot of the boxes for a lot of people.
So, sort of in a nutshell, what kind of changes did you decide to do on your farm?
I had a little trip to New Zealand where, I saw a different way of doing things that we'd done for a long time, I guess. A lot more pasture management, a lot less feed and fertilizer going into the farm, all those things that were costing me money and not necessarily gaining me massive rewards. So I knew that was the kind of approach I wanted to take. I researched a lot about it. I visited a lot of farms and set about trying to implement it on their own farm at home. Changing the genetics a bit, having the stock that would perform on the forage crops that I was growing and trying to grow better crops at the same time.
And obviously, since you were in our young farmer days, you had your little one. Has that sort of changed a bit of a perception as to what the wider image is and what we need to be doing differently?
Yeah, big time. You don't think it will, but suddenly you've got a completely different scope on life, actually. It is all about them all of a sudden, what their life might be like and how you can impact, change just on a small area or try and impact it on a bigger area on, how to make their life, better for the future and, for them to grow up in the nice green countryside that we do.
There is always a bit of a stigma around sort of farming with nature and trying to be a little bit more environmentally friendly, isn't there? We hear a lot of young farmers thinking, I just want to go out farming and it wants to be as productive as possible. Is it quite exciting for you to see with events like this that actually people are talking about this a little bit more and it's becoming a little bit more mainstream?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, I am one of those people. I was never a green basher, really, not at all. I said on the speech, really, I would have said 5 years ago, it's hard to be green when you're in the red and you're struggling to, make a living and everything. So you carry on doing what you do because you are almost a little bit ignorant to it, actually. Actually having a greener approach has made massive difference to my profitability, actually. And it's not shying away from that and actually trying to, make a difference and have a crack at it, really.
Yeah. And there was one slide that you had which went through sort of all your inputs and then your outputs, and you'd go through how your inputs have massively reduced and actually your outputs have increased, which is mad if you think about
Mental.
it.
Yeah. Yep. And it is simple as that. I was managing the wrong things, probably. I've always hated waste, even from the food scraps on your plate or making sure that pair of shoes lasts another year or two. I am a typical type farmer when it comes to it. But at the same time, being a type farmer, I was actually wasting a lot more than I appreciated. And not managing the right things in some cases. So actually, changing those things, it's surprising, reducing all those inputs and still making a better productive farm for it was, it didn't come as a surprise because I'd studied it and knew there was that option. But, it was a pleasant surprise or a pleasant, outcome.
Yeah, right. And you mentioned that you're farming back home, obviously, with your parents and your family. How was it trying to, put these ideas to them? Were they pretty keen for you to bring in your own ideas? Was it a bit of a scary time for everyone?
I wouldn't have said scary, but in a nutshell, same as most farming families, change wasn't really on their mind. I suppose they're a bit afraid of it. They'd done a certain thing in their certain way because of, a certain farm they had. So they thought, what they were doing was probably the best approach. So yeah, I kind of went slowly with it. I didn't, change massive things all at once. I, introduced the genetics quite slowly over a period of 5 years or so. So I didn't really disrespect what they were doing at all. And I did it slowly. And the small changes I made, they might not have agreed with, but I made bloody sure it worked. So yeah, and you set out to prove yourself right, don't you? And not to say I was proving them wrong, but I was making sure that I wasn't going to affect the farming business. I didn't want to really screw it up. So I'd make sure it worked, to be honest with you. And I didn't do it in a disrespectful way. It was over a short, a longer period of time. And once you get momentum like that, it was obviously working. They were happy financially or anything. Then they put more trust in you to carry on.
Yeah. And I found it really interesting that you spoke about it was learning stuff from going away and visiting other farms, and you talk about seeing is believing, and I think that's so important because, as you say, a lot of farmers will get very sort of stick on their farm and this is what it's always been, but going out and finding out more stuff is so
it's
important.
A big world, and there's a lot of people doing things incredibly well, and actually tackling into that is some of the quickest ways of speeding up progress, really. I don't have a uni degree or nothing like that, but everything I've done, all those days off farm is my, kind of my education, and that's been more valuable for me and been far cheaper actually. And studying those people, finding ones that are relatable to you, looking at their case studies, going to see them is massively important.
And so, speaking of those days out, you're here today. Is there anyone else you're particularly looking forward to hearing about what they got up to? Is there anyone else you're following already?
Yeah, Ed Horton, I think I've followed him quite a lot on Instagram and things and what he's doing. All quite great stuff. Yeah, James Lee again, he's done a lot on his farm, and I've followed what he's done quite a bit. So those ones will be really exciting to listen to. I think there's quite a few that will come up, and some very big names and some very interesting speakers to come.
Definitely, including you.
Yeah, all done. Yay.
We'll leave you to it. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Dan, listen to this story on Muddy Matches, our sponsor's website.
Oh, how is this going to make me feel?
I'm crying. Life has become great again thanks to my Muddy Match. That's the title. She makes me so happy and contented with life again. We have so much in common, so many of life's little similarities. It is almost as if fate has played a part. 51-year-old Alan and his Muddy Match both widowed for a similar length of time that connected whilst real dating with us in November 22.
Oh.
This is so important. I think because you're single, we always talk about, young people dating. But Muddy Matches is great for literally any muddy character in the whole entire world, including 51-year-olds.
There seems to be so many success stories across so many different age brackets on Muddy Matches.
Every walk of life, people seem to be finding their love. It's so lovely.
A lot of the time in these, we're taking the mick out of some dating advice, unsuccessful dating advice for me. However, the reality is people are literally finding the love of their life on this website, which is utterly insane if you think about it.
It's insane, but in all the great ways.
Obviously. It's changing people's lives. Get on there, moneymatches.co.uk, use our discount code
Roots40.
and have a lovely life.
Have a lovely life. Have a loving life. Oh. Okay, guys, so we've just heard Chris Berry tell us about how excited he is to see Ed Horton, and we've gone and stole him away. We've got him to talk to us. How are you doing, Ed?
I'm really good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, we're loving it, aren't we?
Yeah, we're good. We are loving Rootstock. It's very exciting to have an event like this in Devon. To start things off, we're asking everyone this series, what are your roots? So where are you from? Did you grow up in farming? What are your roots?
So I am the son of a farmer from Gloucestershire. I trained as an agronomist, and now I'm back at home running the arable side of the farm with my father at home in Gloucestershire. So we're just outside Cirencester up in the hills, sort of shuffling rocks around. It all looks really pretty, but doesn't grow very much, basically, is the gist of it.
Okay.
Amazing. And had you always planned to go back home farming, or was you started doing your agronomy course and you thought, actually, this is so relevant to home, I need to take it back?
I spent a lot of my time trying not to be a farmer When I went off to university, I went and read English and politics. I worked in London for a bit. I tried to escape the whole idea of farming. My parents were very keen, if I was good at something, to go and do something that actually made a good living.
Yeah, right.
And I realised that actually when I used to come home and immediately jump on a tractor to go corn carting or bale carting, because I found that far more entertaining than my actual real job, my dad sort of went, "Are you sure you enjoy what you're doing, or do you really want to be doing something else?" And that's when I came back to farming, and thought I'd go and do a bit of the technical side first, do the agronomy side of life first, before I then came back to actual hands on the ground, sitting in a tractor work.
So what attracted you to the agronomy side of things?
It's because I am a massive geek about plants.
Nice.
I am a massive dweeb when it comes to a plant. I've always liked growing plants. Even when I was a kid, I would love growing vegetables, because I could plant them as seedlings in my bedroom window and then grow them on, put them outside, and then at some point in the summer actually eat the produce of that, at supper. And that looking after something and having the tangible final end product has always been I'm a very literal person. I like to see what I've achieved, and that really spoke to me. And I quite like looking after things.
And not only do you like looking after things, you've now got quite I don't know if it's a passion, but you talk about it and you tell people about how you look after things. And perhaps through that, I might say you're helping looking after everyone else by educating them. What made you get into that side of things?
I think it's because I find it so interesting. I also probably like the sound of my own voice a bit too much.
You're talking to two podcasters. We can relate.
I'm in good company here. Because I really enjoy it. I basically used to I even bore my farming mates at home in the pub with my farming chat. And one of them politely pointed out that there's no point telling him about it because he's heard it from me. But actually, even he found it vaguely interesting as a farmer. He found what we were doing interesting, and maybe actually other people might vaguely find some of it somewhat appealing. And and he actually convinced me to start waffling on Instagram about what we do. Because I find it interesting, I think other people find it interesting, and because I'm not trying to sell something, I'm not trying to tout for business or make a living out of it. It's stuff I find interesting, and hopefully because I find it interesting, other people find it interesting to see what we're up to.
Yeah, you've created your own little community of nerds.
Yeah, bunch of dweebs together.
And since you've done that, did you always know that aside from events like this, there was a big community of people doing it? Or do you think through you talking out about it and you've sort of realised, oh, actually, there's loads of people that are interested. I'm not alone in this.
It's definitely been a case of there are more people out there who are doing it and were doing it that I have then been able to get ideas off or share ideas with, and sort of have our own little sort of like geeky area where we also sit and chat about like, oh, have you seen this new idea, or have you tried this, or what happened when you did that, did it go terribly wrong? So there's more people out there doing different things in agriculture than I think you could ever imagine. It's just not everyone has the time or willpower to sit and talk about it on social media for good reason sometimes.
And we've seen it with, events like this, like Rootstock, that are becoming more popular. Have you found that over the last few years, more people have found the kind of work that you do more interesting because they're starting to want to learn about these things because, for the profitability of their business, etc., then they need to understand it a little bit better?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you only have to look at, let's say, Groundswell 8-9 years ago was very much seen as a preserve of sort of the real left fielders, the ones of us that we should probably be like wearing socks and sandals and knitting our own hemp jumpers, basically, is how it was seen 8 years ago.
Sure.
And now it is very much seen as a mainstream alternative, as it were, to the likes of, not to badmouth anyone in particular, but the one that pops to mind is cereals, what was the biggest arable event. It very much now sits alongside that in its own respect. And I think there is very much a desire to look at things differently these days. From a financial point of view, with loss of BPS and massively changing markets after Brexit, people have to, the status quo doesn't work anymore. And so therefore everyone has to look at what niche they can find, where they can find it, and if that is either producing different crops or changing how they produce their current crops, or completely diversifying their business away from, you know, boring normal arable crops into some of the strange stuff that we grow.
Yeah.
I think that's become much more prevalent, and things like Rootstock, you know, today it's that combination of farming ideas and science joined together.
Yeah.
That the technology and the science is catching up to quantify this change. So yeah, I think that's definitely sort of what's happening at the moment.
Yeah, I think so. And have you been to Groundswell before? We've heard there's a bit of a social scene
Yeah,
there.
we've
but-
been hearing a lot about it today.
Is it?
Oh, it's great. It's great. I got way too drunk. Like, way too drunk.
Yeah.
We were talking about it earlier, and we were talking to Jeremy Gibbs from Forces Farming, who we've had on the podcast, and he was like, you have to camp. You have
Yeah.
to be there for the sesh.
And
I
we're
mean,
like,
it was
yes.
basically a bunch of us geeks who gossip to each other via Instagram.
Yeah, sure.
Who actually had never met each other in real life before.
Yeah, right.
Like me and, well, actually, I'd met Josh, who is now a mate. He's at farms near Bath, and Chris and Zoe,
Yeah.
Chief
Yeah,
Shepherdess,
sure.
and Chris, and there was another bunch of us, and we all just got quite drunk. It was really hot and sunny, and it was the end of day one.
Yeah.
And it's like being at a miniature festival. There's a
Yeah.
massive tent. There's a massive beer tent. There's a band playing.
This
It was
excites
30
me.
degrees. It's June. You know what?
We are
Right.
definitely there this year.
Yeah, we are.
You
You see,
definitely need to
geeks
go.
can be fun too, guys.
Yeah, we can have fun whilst drunk and talking about farming.
Yeah. Oh,
This is so cool, because I don't know about you, because me and Holly both did geography at uni, and we both sort of studied soils and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And whenever we talk to our friends about it, they're just like, oh, what are you talking about?
It's way more fun. It's way more fun. No, Groundswell is really good, and that social side of it is great, because actually the conversations you have there with people outside of the more sort of formal, you know, whether it's a talk or a session, actually those informal bits are where you really like can talk about the nitty gritty,
Yeah.
because there's not, you know, 200 other people listening and forming an opinion, and there isn't someone
Yeah, definitely.
scribbling it down at the back to have you immortalized forever, saying something really dim.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, sorted. We'll put it in our diary.
Yeah, too right.
See you there.
Yeah.
Will we see you there this year?
I hopefully will get some time to go. Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't been shoehorned into a talk yet, so hopefully I can go as a
Yes.
travelling punter
Yeah.
and not have to
Punter.
stress about being. Yeah.
Do you stress about these sort of things? Were you know,
always
feeling
stress
it?
about them.
So
I
wait a
always
minute,
stress about
you're
them.
talking this afternoon, aren't you?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Talking about low input arable farming, or lowering input arable farming, and reduced tillage. So our farming system is based around a predominantly direct drill system and massively reducing artificial inputs. And so there's three of us farmers: John Cherry, who is obviously the host of Groundswell and the organizer; James Lee, who is a local Devon farmer who does a lot with his strip till and things like that, and me. So we have three differing systems, but all looking at the same end goal of sort of soil health and reducing inputs, but still producing seriously performing crops on a commercial scale. And then we have Andy from Rothamsted, who's a soil scientist, who's looking at the science side of, we're talking about the farming side of it and the practicalities of reduced tillage and reduced inputs. Andy's then doing the real number crunching bit of his research into the physical science of soils and what we all are doing on the surface and how that equates underground in real science terms. So that's our chat this afternoon.
That is a powerful group. I think that's going to be quite the lesson.
Yeah, what a group. Brilliant. Well, there's a session going on downstairs, so we can go catch the end of that. Thank you very much, Ed.
But no worries.
And good luck this afternoon. Hope it goes well. We'll be there cheering you on.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're here with Richard Stanbury. I want to say a bit of a fan of the podcast, right? Humour us, please.
Very humorous.
You've made some changes on the farm recently. What kind of changes have you made on the farm?
The past couple of years, really, I've been like making some minor changes. But last spring, I went deep and just did the whole farm, rotational grazed, went and bought a lot of electric fencing and instead of fertiliser, and put the same money that I would have paid in fertiliser into electric fencing. And then a nice easy system on the quad bike and single man go round, set up all the fences and move stock. I think if there was a newbie to come to an event like this, it would be pretty mind-blowing. There's a lot to learn. But again, you can overcomplicate it. So it's just trying to keep it simple. It's just getting people in the door. And once they see those, that's great. And if you've done a bit of growth rates and the other things and the such like, you'll see the benefits of doing it on, like they said, less bills. Yeah. That was the main thing someone said, there's less bills. And what's the most stressful thing about farming probably in the past? Money. And if you've got less bills, there's less stress. I've always been like, I want more. But you can just be a busy idiot. But now I could take on more easily just from the blueprint that you make.
So we're here with Jeff Williams. You are here attending Rootstock this year. Why did you come along today?
A number of reasons, really. I just thought the program, the line of speakers were really interesting and a really good balance of kind of technical and also real world farming and putting stuff into practice. And also it was a good excuse to get off the farm.
So what are you farming at home?
So at home, it's a beef suckler farm. There's the parents involved. We're in partnership with them. We try and, the last kind of few years, 5 years plus, we've been really looking at changing our system and reducing inputs, going to more resilient style of managing our farm and business.
Oh, Holly, what a cool event that was.
It's a sellout event. Like, that's bonkers. And it just goes to show how keen our community is to learn more and to improve and to find ways to make sure they can continue farming for more generations.
Yeah, and I love what Richard Stanbury was telling us. Like, he was talking a lot about how it's all about the mindset, just trying something new, trying new regenerative forms of farming, just keep it super simple, and it's just all about that mindset. I love it.
It is about the mindset, because every single person that has gone up there today has spoke about how they just had to give it a go. They weren't sure if it was right for them. They've probably come from a background like everyone does, where it's just been done a different way, and that's how they're used to, and then they've been like, go on, we'll just give it a try.
And I think what Chris and Rich were both saying was so true in that, they don't see themselves as these like regen.
Yeah, they don't see themselves as like green. What are they called? Green people? Eco warriors? Don't know. They don't see themselves as that people.
Yeah, they don't see themselves as the sort of regen eco warrior people. They just want to try and make their business more sustainable and more efficient. And in Chris very clearly outlined today how that he has achieved that with his farm, and I think it's so interesting. Can you remember back with our Farm Business Innovation Show episode last series, we spoke to Jonty from Farm Ed, and he was saying the same kind of thing. He was saying, I'm so bored of this argument about productivity versus the environment. You need to work with nature, and the long list of speakers. You only got to hear an absolute sliver of a taste of what was spoken about today. It was quite deep at times, and they really got into the nitty gritty, but it's a really interesting topic, which in farming is clearly not going to go away anytime soon. And also a really common theme, because Chris spoke about it, but several of the other speakers spoke about it in their speeches as well. Their mindset changed about this after they had kids.
After their kids. Also, that's the thing I've noticed, after they've gone abroad,
yes,
people are coming back. It's made me think, Holly, if you didn't need any more reason to feel jealous of all your friends over in Australia and New Zealand right now, this is it. You need to get yourself on holiday, because apparently you come back with the best new mindset and way to improve your business.
I think it was James Lee that was just saying, and he started off his speech, I went off to New Zealand, and I thought, yes, like...
Yeah, we've heard it from so many people, and I mean, clearly there's a lot to learn, and we've got to take the benefits of having such a globalised world now. If you can go visit places, you might as well bring something useful back, mightn't you?
Oh, I love it. And as Ed said himself, what a room full of dweebs.
What a room full of absolute losers, and I'm very glad to be one of them.
Absolutely. Okay, so Holly, Rootstock 2023, hopefully there'll be lots and lots more If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you hit subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening on.
And make sure you follow all of our socials.
And Holly, how are you signing off this week?
I'm signing off by saying, you might think it's stealing this directly from Chris Berry. I think I actually referenced it before.
Come on, Holly, you got this.
It's something along the lines of, don't quote me if I get it wrong. It might seem hard to go green when you're in the red, but once you go green, you realise it's the reason you're no longer in the red.
Love it.
See you later. I'm going to drop this mic. I'm joking, it costs a lot of money.